Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of Dentistry Unmasked. I'm Pam Maragliano-Muniz. Always with me is,
Hey Pam, David Rice, good to be here again. How you doing?
oh my gosh, I'm so great. I'm so good. But I'm like so excited because I feel like it's always a good day when I'm talking to Dr. Roger Levin, and I'm so happy to have you with us today.
Well, I am thrilled to be with the two of you. I love the energy of your podcast. I love being part of it. I love the education we can provide. So I'm ready, and hopefully we'll help a lot of people with this one.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here. So
Yeah.
we always are talking about how to make your practice better and systems that you can tweak to be more efficient or attract the best team or be more profitable or utilize your time. I mean, you've got a wealth of knowledge to share with dental professionals. But today we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about that's a bad practice and you need to run for your life. And so share with us some tips about identifying practices that are just not going to be able to be purchased and ones you can't save. Because I feel like sometimes they say there's this sweet spot of a dying practice that you can come in, not pay a lot for it, but then you can help grow it. But that's not always the case.
Not at all, Pam. And I thought about how to start today because it's a great subject. Basically, we're saying what practices should you not buy? What practices can you not turn around and make them profitable? And let me just start by saying to anyone who has purchased a bad practice, you have my sympathy and my real compassion because dentists work so hard. We go through so much. I don't think when we're talking to each other, we remember, wow, David went through dental school because so did Pam and so did Roger. So it's not a big deal. But it's 4 hard years of work. You delay your time coming into the workforce. I remember some of my friends were buying houses when I was in my one-bedroom apartment. And I was lucky. My father paid for my education. And I'm going to cycle back to that because I'm a third generation dentist. So my grandfather graduated in 1926, and it took nothing for him to open a practice. He did work for 5 years to earn enough money to go to dental school because you didn't have to go to college in those days. So he worked for 5 years, went to dental school, opened a practice, and did great. And my father joined him in 1956. So my father learned the business of dentistry from my grandfather, and I joined my father, greatest partnership in the world, in 1982. And I learned business of dentistry from my father. And then, of course, as I launched Levin Group, the consulting firm, I went on to study it the way David has, because neither of us had a big business education in dental school. And Pam, I guess ever since you became editor of dental economics, your learning curve has been incredible. I'm going to make a guess. I would
That's
hope
my
so.
crash course for
Right,
sure.
right. So dentists still learn nothing, my grandfather, my father, and me, and you and David, about business in dental school. And then we're supposed to come out and become an associate or an owner or open or buy a practice. And sometimes we get taken. And I thought I'd open with a couple of stories that have happened to clients, well, people who became clients after the fact. But for example, one went to buy a practice and they were down to final contracts when they found out by accident that there were tax liens against the practice. Tax liens bigger than the purchase price of the practice, which the seller did not disclose, of course, because the seller wanted to sell the practice, which meant huge liability for the buyer as well. So that deal died. Another one went great until they found out that Yoff's manager was so resistant to a sale. She was nasty as can be to the potential buyer and broker because she had what I called a self-designed bonus called embezzlement, and had taken $500,000 out of this. It was a group practice out of this practice in her 15 to 20 years there and it's always what you know of. How much do you know? Can you prove was taken? And by the way, she went to jail, but they didn't get the money back. And then the third story is the buyer is ready to buy the practice. The contracts are signed. I know these are the rare events. It turned out the dentist didn't actually own the practice he was selling. He was divorced. His wife owned the practice, knew nothing about the potential sale. There was a big emphasis on keeping everything confidential. I don't know if he was going to leave for the Dominican Republic or something afterwards with the money, but he was selling a practice he didn't even own. Those are the extreme stories that I think might get everybody's attention here. The more normal ones we'll get to is the new patient count correct? Is the valuation correct? Has the practice declined in any of the last 3 years in production, profit, or collections? Things along those lines. So I'll stop there for a minute, but I thought you might enjoy some of those stories because they're horrific, but they're also a wake-up call for people when you're buying a practice.
I too have seen the spouse trying to sell the practice without the ex being aware of it, and the ex owned the practice. So it's crazy that that
Yeah.
happens frequent enough to that two of us are here having this conversation right now. It's crazy to me, but I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of young dentists out there, and they don't know what they don't know, and they feel maybe so pressured to own something that they sprint, and then there's no real due
Yeah.
diligence, and by the time somebody gets eyes on it who knows what they're doing, it's almost too late.
Yeah. David, I think the end of this whole conversation is going to be get the right advisors. But even that's problematic because young dentists, and I'm going to say this politely, we get calls here all the time from not people who are not clients that are just looking for help. And the questions they will ask in regard to buying a practice immediately indicate that they really don't understand what they're doing at all. And that's when you want to get great advisors. And when I talk about advisors, CPAs, attorneys, part of the problem, David and Pam, I think, is that brokers, and there are many excellent brokers, but they only get paid if a sale is consummated. So they've got a huge bias to get a sale done. Now, many brokers are moral and ethical, but there's still a bias. And you have to have people who know what questions to ask. But even in that case, they often don't dig deep enough. They're going off spreadsheets. They're not in the office. They're not interviewing. They're not spot checking. So the things you need to do when you look at a practice to make sure you're getting what you're supposed to get. And then there's the other side. And what is next year going to look like? At the time of this podcast, we have economic upheaval right now in the United States. We don't know what the economy is going to be doing next week or next month or next year. So a decision you make today can also be greatly affected by changes in the economy, which means you may need the practice to be even stronger than you thought, so that if there is a 10 or 15% downturn, you can weather it and pay your loans back, et cetera. So we really want to talk today, I think, about how do we protect our colleagues in making these decisions?
Well, let's talk about that point because I think that historically we are taught that dental practices are recession proof and dental practices can weather these economic changes that are constantly happening. But that is not necessarily the case anymore either.
No, Pam, at Levin Group, we do national surveys. We publish the annual practice survey with you in dental economics. I think this was our 18th year, if I have that right. And I can give you the data and the history. There have been 5 recessions, not including right now. And we are not in a recession as of this morning, but we've had a lot of economic, uncertainty. The new word is uncertainty. You're going to hear that word all day long, every time you turn on the TV. And in the 5 recessions since 1985 in my career, the first 3, dentistry didn't even need to know it was happening. Even the dot-com crash in 1999, which was pretty severe, dental practices did fine. Dentist portfolios went down, like all of us, but the practices didn't even notice. When we got to 2007, everything changed. And 2007 was a housing recession. It was pretty deep. It was the deepest recession in the history of the United States. And general dental practices fell off about 10 to 11% in average production. Now, that wasn't really so bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. The problem is now we have a new situation. We're coming out of COVID. I don't know that we had a recession, depending on how you define it with COVID, but we certainly had a lot of challenges. And now we're in an uncertain time. And I can absolutely tell you that dental practices are being and will be affected. We're not recession proof any longer. But here's the difference of '07 and today. In 2007, production dropped about 10%. Overhead didn't go up, and there was no staffing crisis. So overhead was stable. So the only thing that happened is your income might have gone down about 10%. Today, you've got three huge factors. One would be a drop in production, which is going to happen this year for some practices. Two is rising overhead. Overhead went up between 9 and 12% in most practices in 2022 and up a little bit in 2023. What took me by surprise was that production also went up in 22 and 23 a little bit. I love when I'm surprised by a survey because I sit back and I say, well, got that one wrong. How did I miss that? The problem was this. Production went up a little bit, overhead went up a record amount, which meant overhead went up more than production, so profit went down. Dentist incomes were squeezed in 22 and 23. 24, not so bad, but 25, as we are looking at the possibility, I have no political comments here, the possibility of tariffs. We've seen our stock market drop quite a bit last couple of weeks, and we have some economic uncertainty, I'll use that word. The difference is we also have inflation, we have rising costs, and we have a staffing crisis resulting in almost a 10 to 12% increase in staffing expenses in most practices, which is the single largest expense. So we have some headwinds in front of us. And if you're buying a practice, you really need to look at that and understand whether or not it's going to be a factor in your decision to buy or walk away.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot. And I think you know, I'm a positive person, but I would say I'm much more realist than anything. And I feel like, you know, based on your timing as a dentist and you're looking at a practice to acquire today, you know, it doesn't make it a bad move, but it means you can't make a mistake. It means you have to be cautious and careful. And to your point, have the right team of people who can get into the numbers and really show you what it means to purchase that practice today.
Yeah, David, I agree. And there are two parts to what you're saying, I think. Part one is all the traditional, very solid process of buying a practice. For example, you want to see 3 years of production growth. You don't want to see any decline in the last 3 years. You want to see 3 years of profit and income growth. You want to look at longevity of staff and stability of staff. You know, as soon as you buy it, you go in there and everybody gets an increase in salary and a bonus opportunity because you don't want to lose anybody in the first year if possible. These are the traditional valuation methods. They make sense. They work. They're good. But we're also today, and when we scheduled this podcast, I didn't know we'd be having this conversation. Today, we've never faced an economic set of changes based on what's happening today. It's been 100 years or more since we've had tariffs, and we don't know the full effect there, except that so far, it's created pressure on the stock market and the bond market. And the reason I mention that is, well, we don't know how patients are going to behave. We're already seeing, for example, more no-shows and last-minute cancellations in our client base. We're seeing elective services being accepted at a lower rate. So I would say this: if you follow the traditional method of deciding to buy a practice, make sure it's at least 10 to 15% better than where you would have pulled the trigger to buy it. If I was going to buy a practice today, I would do all the traditional valuing methods because they're good, they're solid. And then I'd want to make sure I'm at least 10 to 15% better so that I can weather a slight downturn. Because remember, everybody, when you buy a practice, you do lose patience unless the owner is staying for a while with you, which is a whole nother set of benefits and problems that can occur at the same time. So use the standard best practices, get a great dental knowledgeable CPA, get a dental knowledgeable attorney, but then you, because they're not going to tell you this, want to make sure it's better than what you might have bought, because if there's a 10 or 15% downturn, you don't want to end up in serious financial trouble.
Do you think today's uncertain economic climate is going to discourage a prospective buyer to hold off?
I think we're going to see two things. I think DSOs were already slowing down purchases when interest rates went up. And there's a lot of pressure now on DSO management and managers to improve performance because money was basically free prior to interest rates going up. When you can borrow money at 1%, I mean, it's basically free. I mean, I just counseled someone, he's got a 1.5% loan and he wants to know if he should pay it off. No, do not, or give it to me. Do not pay it off. No, if you got a 1.5% loan, do not pay it off. If I could go get, I like to live debt free, but if I can get 1.5% loans, I'll get all three of us signed up yesterday. At the same time, so the DSOs had been slowing down purchases to some degree, but there's huge capital out there looking to buy practices in the private equity firms, massive capital looking to buy all kinds of businesses, including dental practices. But they've slowed down a little bit because they've got interest rate pressure. Now you have a whole different situation. You've got economic pressure. And that economic pressure, yes, I absolutely think it's going to be harder to sell a practice than it was in the past. The top practices will do great. And the other thing, Pam, and I've always hated this concept. The concept in economics is the weaker players get culled out, culled, meaning when you have an economic downturn, the weaker businesses, the weaker restaurants, the weaker retailers, the weaker whoever end up going under. And I always felt, I hate that statement because I always feel so bad for those people. These are often people who've worked so hard, but when you're not doing well and the economy slows down, you're going to get knocked out. That's also going to happen now in dentistry. We never saw that before, but we saw it during COVID, and we're going to see it now. The practices that are already weak are going to end up not being in practice. You know, whether they sell the patients, sell the equipment, or merge, they're not going to be there. And that doesn't show up in bankruptcy statistics because in most cases, dentists don't go bankrupt. They just end up selling the patients or moving in with somebody else. But the number of theoretical bankruptcies in dentistry is going to rise. Now, if you have a solid practice, you don't have to worry about that.
So how do we avoid this? If you are one of those practices that are sort of treading water, you have a choice, right, at this moment to either sink or swim?
Well, it depends on where you are in your career. If you're ready to retire, hopefully you can sell it and you have enough savings to live on. Too many dentists can't retire without the right sale price. We get calls here, I have to get 1 million. Why do you have to get 1 million? Because that's what my financial planner says I need to retire. So they get a $900,000 offer and they don't take it because they want 1 million. We always advise at Levin Group, and David, you and I are good friends, and I think we have a lot of similar philosophies. And what I admire about you from the consulting side is you actually care about helping people, as we do. And I always advise dentists of any age, get to retirement without needing to sell your practice. We know the average age of a retiring dentist today, according to the ADA Health Policy Institute, is 69 to 70 years of age. According to Levin Group, it's 71 to 72. So the standard deviation is pretty close. But here's the big thing. It's rising. Before this economic situation we have today, and we don't know where it's going exactly, I made the statement that 5 years from now, the average retirement age of a dentist will be 74 to 75 years of age. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see if I'm right. And based on that, you want to create a savings plan that does not include, tell your financial advisor, don't include the sale of my practice when you do my financial plan. That's bonus money. Now, having said that, if you're near retirement, I would suggest you start making plans to sell. Number one, get your management systems in place and grow your production. Go up, again, up 10 or 15% helps, but make sure you grow every year for 3 years. Your valuation gets dinged heavily if not. Number two, you want a stable staff. That is important to buyers because when they see constant turnover in the last couple of years, and we have a lot of that due to the staffing crisis, that creates a feeling of instability. The assistants are not as important. The hygienist is not as important as the front desk people. They're the continuity. Your insurance plans, don't join every bad plan you can find, because that will work against you with a buyer. Because buyers, one of the biggest mistakes I see, Pam, on what practices not to buy, don't buy the heavily enrolled in practice with insurance companies thinking you're going to come in and cut it out. We have a new client right now. 3 months ago, they started with us because they got rid of Delta, and now they have no profit. He woke up one day and got annoyed and cut out Delta, which was 50% of his practice. What dentists, I'm not pro insurance, I'm not anti insurance, I don't have that luxury, but insurance does help pay the overhead. When people say, oh, there's so low profit on this, right? But until you get a better model, it's also paying your overhead and keeping you alive. So I think the answer is to look for practices that are solid, that have stability, and that are in a market. You got to look at the community where you can come in and grow it. But if you think you're going to come in and make a million changes the first year, I've seen this so often. David's smiling. It works against you. You know, young dentists have ideas. This is how I'm going to practice. One of my favorite sayings, I'll become a little bit academic and philosophical here, is you have to be able to afford your values. We can all do whatever we want when we can afford it. It's not as easy when you can't. And we've cleaned up many practices, and some we couldn't turn around, where the dentist bought it and made massive changes in the first year. Reduced staff salaries, cut out bonuses, dropped out of insurance plans, changed the hours. None of that works in your favor. My rule is, when you buy a practice, go in there, be incredible to every single patient, and change nothing for 12 months. That's my general advice to people. So
Solid advice.
yeah.
And, you know, people generationally, I think we haven't done our kids any favors by, you know, again, the positivity I like, but the reality of life is, no, you can't accomplish anything you want to like that. That's not
Yeah.
the way that we're like we need strategy.
Yeah.
Strategy takes time depending on what you've invested in and who's around you helping with you. So I couldn't agree more. Patience. I mean, if somebody would have told me 30 years in dentistry would have flown by like it was overnight, I would have never believed it as a young doc. But I mean, I think both of you would agree, like we got here in a minute, didn't we? Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So be patient as a new owner.
Yeah, that's really great insight, and two corollary points. One is on strategic planning. So we have a service in strategic planning. I love doing it. I personally take 6 a year. We do them in teams of 2 because it's so much fun, but it's a 5-year plan. If you call here and say, I want a 6-month plan, I'm not going to do it, because you can't get there in 6 months. We advise new clients, if you're expecting your complete turnaround in 30 days, David, they can call you, because it can't be done. So, you know, you're right. You can't turn a battleship overnight, and you can do a lot more harm than good by moving too fast. And the second piece of what you said in terms of helping our younger dentists, we really don't have mentor programs. You know, I had a father to teach me the ropes, which was fantastic, but not everybody does. So if you're a young dentist, in addition to getting the right CPA and the right attorney and learning to ask insightful questions, find another dentist to just chat with. They may not know the answers, but, you know, a 30-year dentist like David, I don't practice today, David, but I guess I'd be a 41-year dentist. And Pam, they can all call you, Pam. You have plenty of time for everybody to call you.
No, don't call me.
I know how hard you work, and dental economics is fantastic. And you've done a great job there, which I appreciate. But find a dentist with experience and run things by them. Don't take it, you know, as gospel. But a lot of times a dentist can look at you and say, no, that's not going to work for you, or don't do that, or do this. And at least you can think about it. And a dentist in your community will have a much better sense of your community than your outside advisors will.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, mentorship. You know, I feel like sometimes you fall into or a young dentist might join a practice hoping for this mentorship, but they might be mentored by the person that's not the right person for them.
Mhm.
So, would you talk about some attributes that we should probably be looking for in a mentor so that we are getting sound business advice? Because I see on somebody might post something on, I love this. I mean, you probably do too. Go to a social media group. Somebody posts a question where the answer is extremely straightforward. The array of answers that come are crazy. And I feel like, well, what if that guy's your mentor? Like, what are you going to do?
Well, if you got another couple hours, I'd like to comment on this. The first comment is be very careful what you see on social media. Some of the advice will bankrupt you. It is, people say, "Oh, drop all your insurance." And by the way, these sometimes it's people who we know their names. They may not take insurance. It doesn't mean the person with 70% insurance-based revenue can just drop their insurance. I mean, you may, as I always say, call your bankruptcy attorney first.
Hmm.
So, in terms of mentors, I'm going to surprise you with my answer, Pam, and I have thought about this very deeply. Part one of my answer is the mentor is not responsible for you, even if you're paying them. They're paid mentors and unpaid mentors. You are responsible for the relationship. And if you don't show up prepared when you meet with your mentor, that is a huge failure point. It is almost disrespectful, but certainly foolish to have a mentor and you just show up and expect them to figure everything out for you. What Every time you meet with your mentor, you should have a minimum of 3 written questions. I have a technique called a message triangle. I draw a triangle on an index card. I use them every single day. I have it for today with you all. What are 3 points that I want to make that are important to your audience? Or what are 3 questions I want to ask? By the way, this may sound funny. I do this with friends. If I know I'm getting together with certain friends, like tomorrow, one of my friends is an MIT economics MBA. I've already got 3 questions based on what's happening today that I want to ask him, and I've written them out. He's not my mentor; he's my friend. But with mentors, be prepared when you meet with them. What do you want to know? That's number one. Number two, what is their experience level? You can't get wisdom without experience. There are a lot of really smart people. But David, one good thing about your 30 years and my 41 years, we got a lot of experience now. I know a lot more than I knew 30 years ago. And somebody said to me a while back, "How did you solve my problem so fast?" And I used the standard joke. I spent 40 years getting ready for it. Um, how experienced is your mentor? Ask someone that you're hiring or working with, how many times have you done this? And then how many years? I no disrespect, but a young person often doesn't have the experience. They may have done it before, but they'll miss the new thing that they didn't think about. You don't want to be the guinea pig of your mentor. You want somebody who has seen it over and over and over again. So I would say experience, age, and then get a sense of success rates. And get a sense of the person. Do they like working with me? Do they seem like they care about me? You don't want a mentor, even if you pay them, that doesn't care about you. I have said to people over the years in many deals I've been involved with, I'm not just hiring you to do this deal. I need to know that you really care about protecting me. And I've said that as an adult, and I'm not naive. I'm not a neophyte, but when I hire people, I make it clear to them what I'm looking for. So you have to take that responsibility. No mentor gets up every morning saying, "I got up today. I got to call Pam and David and see how I can improve their lives this morning." Happy to always do it for you guys and vice versa, I hope. But I don't get up in the morning and say that. I get up in the morning and say, "Wow, Levin Group has clients. We got to go take care of them." So a mentor needs to care. And if you don't get that sense, then I would say find someone else you can pay with equal experience that does care.
It's great
Yeah.
advice. It's sage advice. It's you got to walk in and own it for yourself, or
Yeah.
don't invest the time and energy. You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Pam, how the heck does 30 minutes go by in 30 seconds?
It's so unfair. I can never have enough time with you. It is
I know.
crazy. I know.
We
Oh,
need to put
you
this on
guys
like
are
a
great.
regular interval.
I know. Yeah, no, we need a like a Roger hour, probably like every 5 weeks.
Well, I'll always say yes to you. So it's a pleasure, and I hope people looking at a practice will listen to this 2 to 3 times. That's the other thing. If you, I want to make one final comment, and people may disagree with me, but David, I noticed now in my lectures, most people don't take notes anymore. They don't even bring paper. They're like halfway through, they'll go say, "Oh, that was good. Anybody got any paper or a pen?" Listen to this podcast 2 to 3 times. Write down the pitfalls you could run into. And then if you're looking at buying a practice, ask the questions and make sure that's not a situation for you. Really important.
I love that. I'll add one thing. Don't try to prove yourself right.
Yeah.
Just try to
Yeah.
be better. I love the triangle. I'm going to be triangle worthy from this day forward, Pam.
I love that. Yeah, me too. And I have to say, I have my notebook. I've got my pen. I told you guys I would be taking notes, and I did.
Yay.
Well, by the way, I'll add to your triangle real quickly. The reason the triangle is 3 points, so I either make 3 points or have 3 questions. I have found in life that the top three are more important than the next 97. And I think that's why it works so well. Now, sometimes you need 5 or 6 questions, but if you just get three, you're really thinking correctly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I can't wait to see you again soon.
Love it. Okay, guys, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Roger.
much.
Bye.
All
Bye,
right,
gang.
everybody. Thanks for
See ya.
joining us. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.